Hello and welcome to mathematics class. This time we're going to learn geometry and some parts of geometry. In the lower classes you learned plane shapes. Plane shapes are part of geometry. Okay, we have different types of plane shapes. The first one is the triangle. And we all know that a triangle has three sides and three angles. A triangle has three sides and three angles. Then another one that we have is a square. All the four sides of a square are equal. For a square, all the four sides are equal. The next one is a rectangle. Okay, only two opposite sides of a rectangle are equal. Please pardon my drawing. Only two opposite sides of a rectangle are equal. So the square and the rectangle are also called quadrilaterals because they have four sides and four angles. Now, another example of plane shapes is a circle. We have circle, all these are under geometry, all right? So we have circle, a circle is a round figure. It has what we call a diameter, which is a line that divides the circle into two equal halves. And it also has what we call radius. Radius is a line drawn from the center of the circle to any part of the circumference. Now the diameter is a line drawn from one circumference to another circumference passing through the center of the circle. So this is a diameter. Okay, then this particular line is what we call radius. So you're going to learn more about circle. Now another example of plane shapes is parallelogram. We have the parallelogram, which has parallel sides. Okay, a parallelogram has parallel sides. You can see these are the sides that are parallel to each other. Two opposite sides of a parallelogram are parallel to each other, and it is also called a quadrilateral. Another plane shape is the kite. Okay, the kite. Kite is also a plane shape. All right, so these are plane shapes. Another plane shape I can remember right now is what we call the trapezium. Okay, we also have what we call the trapezium. So a trapezium has two parallel sides, while the other two sides are not parallel. These are the parallel sides of a trapezium, and this is the height of the trapezium. Now, under geometry, we also have solid shapes. We have solids. Most times in mathematics, we call them solids. Now, what are solids? Solids are also called three-dimensional shapes. An example of these solids, an example is cube. Okay, it is cube. Cube is formed by squares. It is formed using squares. So this is how to draw a cube. All the sides or all the edges of a cube are equal. Another example of solid is cubeboard. We have cubeboard. You can observe the way I am drawing these solids. So this is a cubeboard. We also have a cylinder. A cylinder is a shape that your cup has. Excuse me. Another example of a solid is cone. The shape of the roof of some houses is a cone, has the shape of a cone, and another one is a sphere. Okay, a sphere is a three-dimensional shape. Example of a sphere is a ball. So I'll be using a ball, that object, to represent a sphere. It is not a plane shape, it is a solid. It is a solid. So any shape any solid that has a spherical shape is a solid shape. Now, so we are still under geometry. Let's move on to angles. Under geometry, we'll be looking at angles. So, talking about angles, let's look at the first type of angle. We have right angle. We have right angle. A right angle is an angle whose value is exactly 90 degrees. Okay, a right angle is an angle whose value is exactly 90 degrees, and this is how it is represented. So anytime you see an angle with this sign, like a 7 or an L, with something like this, it is called a right angle. Okay, it is called a right angle. So when there are angles within these angles, we call them right angles. Okay, now the next one is a straight line angle. A straight line angle. A straight line angle is equal to 180 degrees. So it is an angle at 180 degrees. So this is 180 degrees. So we have right angle, we have straight line angle. Now we also have what we call acute angles. Okay, that will be the next one. We have what we call acute angles. Now, what are acute angles? Acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. Okay, an acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. So, for instance, 78 degrees, okay, 65 degrees, 22 degrees, 14 degrees, 39 degrees are called acute angles. They are called acute angles. Okay, now the next type of angle is obtuse angle. The next type of angle is what we call obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is less than 180 degrees but greater than 90 degrees. Yes, it is less than 180 degrees but greater than 90 degrees. So examples are 115 degrees. So 115 degrees is greater than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. So 115 degrees is an obtuse angle. 128 degrees is an obtuse angle. 144 degrees is an obtuse angle, and so on. Now the next type of angle we'll be looking at is what we call reflex angle. Okay, reflex angle. Now a reflex angle is an angle that is less than 360 degrees but greater than 180 degrees. Reflex angle is an angle that is less than 360 degrees but greater than 180 degrees. So what are the examples of reflex angle? Now these are examples of reflex angle. 195 degrees, 181 degrees, 214 degrees, 290 degrees, 345 degrees are all called reflex angles. Alright? Now we also have what we call complementary angles. We have what we call complementary angles. Complementary angles are angles in which when you add them together, it will sum up to, they will sum up to 90 degrees. So when you add two angles together, they will give you 90 degrees. So those angles are called complementary angles. Such angles are called complementary angles. So when the sum of two angles is equal to 90 degrees, those angles are called complementary angles. So let's write that down. When the sum of two angles is equal to 90 degrees, then we call them complementary angles. Okay, we call them complementary angles. So examples, these are examples. Now 26 degrees and 64 degrees are complementary angles. Okay, both of them in a pair are called complementary angles because when you add 26 to 64, you are going to get 90 degrees. Now let's move on to the next one. The next type of angles is what we call supplementary angles. Okay, we call them supplementary angles because when you add the two angles together, they will sum up to 180 degrees. So when the sum of two angles is equal to 180 degrees, they are called supplementary angles. They are called supplementary angles. I hope it is clear. Now we have more to learn under geometry, but this is the foundation that I have to lay for you so you can understand this, because by the time we proceed, you will need all these for the explanation of the shapes whose sides, whose angles, both interior and exterior angles would be found. So in the next class, you'll be learning parallel lines, okay, and you'll be learning angles between parallel lines. Angles between parallel lines. This can be very broad, okay, because you're going to have different exercises to do. Now, let's look at some questions as regards what we have learned. If we are to find the missing angle, find the missing angles in the diagram below. Okay, in the diagrams below. Now look at this first one. You may have something like this. Okay, you may have something like this. Okay, so we have to find the missing angles. Now if you look at it, you will see that this particular line is a straight line. So we have angles on one side and we have a set of angles on the other side. Now if you look at it very well, you see that 42 and x are on a straight line. So the sum of these two angles will be equal to 180 degrees because they are on a straight line, and that will make us call them supplementary angles. Now x will be equal to 180 degrees minus 142 degrees because we have to collect the like terms. So x is equal to 138 degrees, or rather, sorry, x is equal to 38 degrees. Now, to find the value of y and 115 degrees are on a straight line. So the sum of angles on a straight line is equal to 180 degrees. Now let's collect like terms. Y is equal to 180 degrees plus 115 will become minus 115 degrees because we have to subtract both sides by 115 to be left with y. So y is equal to 65 degrees. Okay, so now let's see another example. Now we have to find the value of m right here. And this particular angle is a right angle. So m and 56 degrees are in a right angle. And the sum of angles in a right angle is equal to 90 degrees. So m is equal to 90 degrees minus 56 degrees. M is equal to 34 degrees. So the missing value in this particular diagram is equal to 34 degrees. Now the next question. Now look at this. Give the following angles a name. Give the following pairs of angles their names. Alright, now look at the first one, 113 degrees and 67 degrees. Okay, we have 16 degrees and 74 degrees. Number 3, we have 239 degrees. Okay, now let's look at number 1. 113 degrees and 67 degrees. If you add them together, the sum will be 180 degrees. So we are going to call these angles supplementary angles. So that's the name of the pair of angles, supplementary angles. Now look at number 2. If you add 16 and 74 degrees together, the sum will be 90 degrees. So we call the angles complementary angles. Okay, we call them complementary angles. Now look at this, 239 degrees. What kind of angle is 239 degrees? This kind of angle is known as a reflex angle. So this is a reflex angle. A reflex angle is greater than 180 degrees but less than 360 degrees. Now what kind of angle is 49 degrees? It is an acute angle because it is less than 90 degrees. Now what kind of angle is 152 degrees? 152 degrees is an obtuse angle because it is greater than 90 degrees, less than 180 degrees. So I hope you have learned something new in this class. You need to attend this class again, practice over and over so you can become the master of this topic. So I hope you enjoy. If this is your first time attending this class or visiting our channel at Learning Base Africa, please click the subscribe button right now, like right now, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for attending this class. I'll see you some other time. Goodbye.